All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back from morning tea. I'm hoping all your voices are doing better than mine after the epically long voting session last night. All right, welcome to Sharing and Collaboration across the ArcGIS platform. We've got Ed and Fran here ready to present some of the cool ways that you can be sharing and collaborating with your colleagues and people outside your organization. So we'll pass it over to them, and they've got a great presentation lined up. Please remember to use the Slido app to ask any questions. Do you have the QR code, Ed?
We do. One
Great.
second.
QR code coming, and then we'll do questions at the end. All right, over to you, Ed and Fran.
Thank you. Sweet. So yeah, in this session we're going to cover all about sharing and collaborating in ArcGIS. So we'll start with a little bit of an overview of the ArcGIS platform, and then a little overview on sharing patterns. Then we'll cover partnered and distributed collaboration shortly. We'll share some examples, and we'll finish with sharing all about ArcGIS Hub. So this session will mostly be covering aspects of ArcGIS Online. So if that's not what you're interested in and you want to go to a different session, maybe now's the time to go. So I just thought I'd say that up front.
So this session is called Sharing and Collaboration for good reason, because this will involve a little bit of audience participation to get going. And so we want to hear from you. We want you to share your thoughts. What are you hoping to see or learn about in this session? So please scan the QR code, this word cloud. We want to give sort of 30 seconds to see what your thinking and ideas are. And it is a little bit of a pick your own adventure based on what comes up in the word cloud. And we might be able to sneak it in the next 72 and a half minutes. So we'll just give you a bit of time. What's new? Sharing with externals. Working with externals. Collaboration groups. Awesome. Some clear trends coming out. I'm going to let those 8 participants currently typing submit their ideas and then close this off and get back to the slides. Best practice, collaboration groups. Awesome. Well, it's great when you prepare a session and your content aligns with what people are wanting, so that's super. So now we're just going to go into a little bit around the ArcGIS platform just to set the scene here. We want to just emphasise where some of these patterns come in to it all. Might just switch back to your screen, Fran.
Yep, that's all mine.
Run it from your machine. So yeah, like this is a diagram that you've probably seen various versions of over the last couple of days. Like both ArcGIS Online and Enterprise are the foundational systems for a lot of the collaboration patterns that we work on. Whether it's mapping and visualization, data management, but critically sharing out to people wider than just a solo GIS analyst. And so these are designed to integrate with one another, which is the critical point of showing this slide, as well as ArcGIS Pro and the rest of the Esri suite of applications. So we're just going to move a little bit into some of the sharing patterns that we've seen. So we're going to be reviewing collaboration architectural patterns that are available in ArcGIS. Some of the foundation bits of those capabilities you can see on screen at the moment. The key thing is these aren't just distinct separate things. They work and can be combined with one another and also build upon one another. For example, sharing an item, bundling that into a group, using that group as the basis of content you're sharing between 2 portals, using either partner collaboration if it's between 2 ArcGIS Online environments, or distributed collaboration if you're needing to share content in a specific manner between 2 ArcGIS Enterprise environments, or ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online. So as we move through this presentation, notice the technology patterns that you could be taking advantage of for your own workflows and organisational needs. And we'll share a few implementation examples, but again, conceptually we can think about how these different patterns build upon each other. These aren't distinct things that you work in isolation from when you're using them. They work in tandem to create a pretty unique and powerful capability, not just for a GIS platform, but an enterprise-wide system to help connect people with content inside an organisation. Maybe it's to each other in communities if you're starting to use Hub Premium on top of this, and engaging multiple communities and sectors in emerging ecosystems and sectors. So starting at the high level with the very basics, at the item level, whether it's a map, an application, a layer, you can set the sharing level to private to your organisation only or publicly. Who's sharing content currently across their organisation to separate business units as part of their BAU? Cool. Keep those hands up. A little bit of yoga. So who's sharing content to an external organisation as part of their BAU using groups? Wow. Who's using partnered or distributed collaboration in their organisation for some of those workflows? Very, very interesting. We're told that we're leading edge in New Zealand for this and many other things that we're using ArcGIS for, so it's awesome to see users of the technology and the patterns that we're talking about here in the room today. So this is just that continuum once again around sharing items, being able to just lock it down to yourself and your organisational admin who has access to it, sharing with one or more groups, sharing with your whole organisation, or sharing with everyone. Where groups get interesting is they start as a basic concept. You establish a group in one of your originating portals, and you share content between them, and then being able to use distributed and partner collaboration on top of it to help with either additional functionalities you need in those groups, such as multi-organisational editing of the same items, whether it's additional access to the membership lists of a portal for rapid onboarding, or heightened search of user identities in another organisation so you can quickly add them and onboard them to a group to get access. And these are really powerful capabilities, and really we wanted to stress that the pattern that we're seeing and what this is contributing to is this pattern where we're going from collaborating as separate individuals in office partitions, maybe sharing a paper map over the booth to the person working next to you, to having central portals, which a lot of you are using for your mission critical, but also your BAU workflows, where you're sharing content into one portal that then everyone in your organisation, if they need to, can access it, to seeing these networks of organisations emerging, where you're using partnered, distributed collaboration, maybe to share between online and enterprise, enterprise to enterprise, online to online, both internal to internal or internal to external. So just to re-emphasise that, we showed this slide that we'll bring up on screen in a second at the regional user conferences and got really good feedback on it. Started to bring a lot of these concepts I've been talking about into sort of a single diagram, seeing how they all link. So just to give you a bit of a recap, talking about content and how far you can share it and what each of those settings and capabilities enable. We have a couple of user sharing actions that we can choose to use whenever we load an item into ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. You can share to only you, sharing to a specific group with organisational members, sharing to your wider organisation, sharing to an externally hosted group, such as a layer that you want to share into a group that another organisation or another portal hosts, so then that item can be picked up and reused in additional products in another organisation. I guess the implications of these different settings is really the distribution levels that your content goes on, that journey of how far it flows away from its source of truth. So let's start off with when you share to only you. When you share with that setting, the implication is you're sharing it to yourself, but also your subscription admin who has access to all the content in your organisation. The next step is sharing it to you and the rest of your organisation, which those bottom two settings of sharing to a group, an internal group, and sharing to your organisation really encompass. So you're sharing in this case to maybe a selected subset or to your wider organisation. Then this is where it gets interesting, having that control to share to an externally hosted group. You're starting to share to I guess, a limited distribution audience externally, which is really critical for a lot of our workflows that require collaboration of cross-department, cross-jurisdictional boundaries. And then we have sort of that limited distribution but uncontrolled, if you like, when we start sharing into an externally hosted group. It's not hosted by us, so we can't really dictate what that might be used for. But luckily, the final boat of the string is sharing publicly. That's quite easy for all of us in the room to understand. If you have the URL, you're able to access that. And where partner collaboration comes into this pattern, if you're using ArcGIS Online, is it allows those top two tiers of sharing to an externally hosted group or sharing to a group that has external members in it. It allows you to onboard and offboard membership really quickly, and also introduces capabilities for the item itself, being able to say, have 10 organisations editing the same dashboard, if you had a workflow for that. So it's easy, it's a way to establish a formal relationship of trust between two ArcGIS Online organisations, is how we describe partner collaboration. You can use groups between two different subscriptions to share content, but partner collaboration is the added layer of control and security for that. And so this is really a visual that sums up what partner collaboration does. You're not moving content at all, you're just sharing access beyond. And you can partner up to 20 other online collaborations through this. So if you're a subscription administrator, this is a setting that you can turn on. And here's just a visual that sort of summarizes all of those things in a way that hopefully makes sense. I'm showing the different pieces of the puzzle that sit behind a partner collaboration. So participating organisations still use groups and member management tools to add content and add users, but it's just an additional setting and capability that you can turn on around a specific group. So distributed collaboration, this is where we start involving enterprise into the mix. Online to online, it is a very straightforward workflow in a lot of ways. The enterprise does introduce some complexities, particularly from where we're deploying our enterprise environments, and maybe the additional ICT constraints that sit around exposing that environment for things like collaboration. So some key points on distributed collaboration. It is that way to share between ArcGIS Enterprise and other enterprises, or enterprise to online. And content can be shared in a variety of two ways, whether it's a reference or a copy. So a reference using that same REST URL that then is being referenced inside maps and applications, or if you're needing it as part of your workflow as copies. So these are two separate items and services, one in each organisation. So the source organisation has the source of truth, if you like, sitting in their portal, but then it creates a copy that goes into that other organisation. And this content can be shared in two ways, from online to enterprise and from enterprise to online, or enterprise to enterprise for that matter. Bit of a constraint here though, compared to partner collaboration. ArcGIS Enterprise can only collaborate if it's to online with only one other organisation. So that definitely introduces a little bit of complexity into the mix. But here's a slide that sort of just summarises that once again visually. Compared to partner collaboration, you see the same pieces of the puzzle there. So you've got group, you've got items, the collaboration workspace. It's just you've got different source and target portals available as options, introducing enterprise into the mix. But once again, just re-emphasising it's that established level of trust to share content from one org to the other. Really rapidly, some of the access modes here, so being able to consider these variables. So you've got the access modes, so being able to send only, receive only, and send and receive. Sharing as copies or by reference. So of course the complexities when you start creating copies of items and how you manage those between the two organisations. Particularly if the content itself is fast changing in terms of item changes, whether those are adds, updates or deletes. and also the sync settings. So what's the appetite, or what's the requirement that you require around, is it an immediate sync that's needed, or can it be on a scheduled basis to control all of those changes being made to the data set to send through at a certain point in time. So just deep diving a little bit on syncing. So when you sync immediately, any new content shared within the collaboration groups will be sent to the participants of those collaborations right away. And any updates made to the items already shared with collaboration groups will also be sent right after they are saved. Sync schedules are set at the workspace level by the guest critically. So by default, the interval for the scheduled sync is set to check for and send changes around 24 hours. So the minimum sync interval, you can set that as 1 hour. So if it's a data set that needs multiple changes being reflected and used by whatever analyst or manager or C-level is looking at the product that the data is maintained in, just consider that as part of the workflow. But you can choose any sync interval between those two brackets, between 1 and 24 hours, and you can choose different intervals for different workspaces in that same collaboration. So collaboration is an overarching concept that sits between the two portals that you're working with, and then you've got separate workspaces that sit within it. So it may be that organisation Fran and organisation Ed have 3 different work streams or projects that we're working on. So each of those workspaces for the different projects, we can change each of those settings, particularly around syncing. So I've been talking very, very technical and not talking about, I guess, the greater good, the greater outcomes that this is enabling with some case studies. So we just wanted to run through a few examples of collaboration just to start relating what we're talking about on stage to workflows that might be relevant for you. So let's look at our online to enterprise example where we have data collection happening in an ArcGIS Online environment. It may be our contractors, we don't want them accessing our internal enterprise environment, but we're all right with them being members of an online subscription, either through groups or built-in users. And so collecting data in enterprise, quality assurance, and then storing that in enterprise is the high-level flow. So mobile workers, they connect online to collect the data, and then the collected data will be sent to the enterprise, where in that business logic and rules would be applied through quality assurance of the data collected, and then readied for use in maps and apps. And let's look at an enterprise to online example, so going the other way. So in this case, we have internally created content. We're wanting to share that outwards to the public, but not exposing our internal enterprise environment for that, for various reasons. It turns out your work is very, very popular when you share it publicly. As we've found, maybe there's a few scalability challenges with how you've set up your enterprise environment. We don't want maybe 500,000 hits in a few minutes or hours on the content and that you have. You want to lean on a software as a service product to provide that. And so in this case, the day-to-day work around the data and content would be done in enterprise. And then approved users, so almost your system admin or your one of your higher-level roles, they can then share this content from enterprise to online and then use online to share it out publicly. So let's go to one that's a little bit more tricky than just a one-way flow of a stream. So this is an example of a collaboration where you're using both online but also enterprise as part of that mix. So for example, there might be a coordinating organisation that's working with a whole lot of others, each providing a little piece of the puzzle on the map. The authoritative data for this project, maybe the reference or baseline information around maybe the base map or some of the reference layers would be stored in enterprise. And you're wanting to share that out to, say, a contractor and a client in this case. So you can share that content up into that central coordinating ArcGIS Online, and then maybe share that out to those other online organisations. So then that meets that need if those smaller organisations might not have the resources for maintaining, or they might not have the size or need for enterprise in this case. So that's an example of how these pieces of the puzzle can start fitting together to create some pretty powerful workflows. And so now we're going to go into the application level and hand over to Fran to talk about a specific sharing application that's very, very cool. Fran.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, so we'll start with ArcGIS Hub, and maybe we'll start with a quick poll.
Sounds good.
just answer that in Slido. So it's good to see some no's. So then you see some stuff maybe you haven't seen before. You can learn something in the next section of this session. I'll leave it for a few more seconds.
I'm keen to get that number to 20. I know there's more than 20 people in the room. Oh, there we go. Who's going to be the lucky 20?
There we go.
Awesome. Congratulations, number 20. Over back to you, Fran.
Cool. So just as an overview for those who don't know, ArcGIS Hub is a cloud-based engagement and collaboration platform that helps you as an organization to work more effectively with your community. And when we use the term community and hub, we mean it very broadly. So anyone outside of your core organization or your core team within your organization that you want to collaborate with, or those who will be affected by your decisions, or those who you want to work more closely with, they all fall under this umbrella of community. So for example, if you're running a project in a certain suburb, the residents of that suburb are going to be directly affected by your project. So you want to make sure that they're informed at all stages and that maybe they can even contribute ideas or data. So when we say community, it could be those residents, or it could be government leaders, it could be universities, it could be volunteers, and so on. So again, anyone outside of your core team that you want to share content or share data with, collaborate with and engage with, work together on projects and initiatives, you can use ArcGIS Hub for that. And you want to do this because you want to make sure that everyone is informed and everyone is on board with what you're doing, so you have that shared vision around the goals that you're working on together. But why use ArcGIS Hub for this? So first and foremost, ArcGIS Hub is an open data platform, which is built on top of ArcGIS Online. So if you have ArcGIS Online already, you have access to ArcGIS Hub Basic, and you can start using this tool. It supports data federation. So as I mentioned in the first day of plenary, you can have a configurable DCAT feed, and you want to share data to support informed decision-making. You can use ArcGIS Hub to inform and educate your audience, and it can be that one place for data and information. And in Hub, you can track and share your progress with your initiatives and your projects. You can also establish community engagement, where you engage with your stakeholders, whether they're internal or external to your organization. And you can start getting feedback and inputs and really understand the community needs. And you can also establish team-based collaboration, so you can maintain this communication channel and design with the people that you're working for. So now looking at ArcGIS Hub and all the different pieces more specifically, they can be broadly summarized in these two categories, which are information and education and engagement and collaboration. And we're making this distinction mainly because of the two different Hub offerings, which is Hub Basic, where you can create Hub sites and create open data portals, and Hub Premium, where all those extra engagement and collaboration tools come into play. So ArcGIS Hub is a great tool for organizing all kinds of data, application, and information in this form of sites. And before I dive into this more specifically, I thought I would show a few Hub sites. I should have duplicated my screen. Well, here you can see, just to show, all the Hub site extents across the globe at the moment. It's a very heavy layer, so it might take a little bit to load in this Wi-Fi. But I showed this in plenary, and you could see all the different squares that represent all the areas that the content in each of these Hub sites cover. So I thought I would show a few of the hub sites I've found that I really like, just because they look very nice. So here's Open Council Open Data, where they're just showing a few of their data sets. So very simple in a search bar to enter the Open Data portal. I might just look up something, see what comes up. And this interface is out of the box. This is low code to no code at all. This area specifically, there's no configuration needed. You just link your group with your content, and you're able to get this Open Data catalog. Here's Hawke's Bay Regional Council Open Data Portal. Again, using category cards to access the data, which I will talk about more in depth in a little bit. But even with the Hub Basic site, you can still find ways around gathering community feedback. For example, here, they've embedded a Survey 123 form. So just a few ways of getting around those engagement tools. KiwiRail, they've embedded a map. And again, using those category cards. And you can also use it to just display information and not just your data.
I guess this is a good opportunity to ask who from their organisation has a public-facing open data portal using ArcGIS Open Data. Awesome. That's about half the room.
Sweet. So in terms of informing and educating, I will cover a few of these. So hub sites, like you saw before, a hub site you can use to share information with others and data. It's very easy to build, super customizable, no custom coding. You can use some custom code if you want, but it's not needed, and all the tools are out of the box. With Hub Basic even, and Hub Premium, you can build unlimited sites and pages. You can use them to communicate your goals and objectives. You can include all sorts of items, so applications, surveys, maps. You can share authoritative data, and it comes with a built-in analytics management system. You can also use tools that provide web analytics, such as Google Analytics, SiteImprove, and Adobe Analytics to track usage of your hub site. So to get started, one good practice is to create a sketch of what you want your hub site to look like, because most likely you will be able to replicate that very easily using the out-of-the-box tools. Or you can use one of the many templates available. I will demonstrate this at the end of this session as well. But from there, you'll start maybe by customizing your site's appearance with your organization's logo and branding. And from there, you will use these layout cards and rows that you see on the screen. You can create unlimited pages to link to your site, and then start populating them with content, which you will be able to access using these layout cards that you see on screen. So for example, your map card, or your category card, or your gallery card. So there are different ways of accessing your content. But again, you can embed applications that you have, such as dashboards, just to give an overview of the work that's being carried out. And you can also embed external websites using the iframes card.
I guess on that note, there's a few resources that have become available for helping you on your way to create hub sites that leverage the best out of HTML and having samples available. Would that be something of interest, showing you where those resources are sort of later in the session for how to build these websites with these really cool cards and HTML samples? Would that be useful? Yeah, awesome. We'll show that later on.
Sweet. So just some considerations or best practices. In terms of the row card, which is the first layout card that you see in this image, this is the foundational card to start building your hub site. So every other card goes inside of the row card. And regardless of the theme that you set for your hub site, you can edit it at the row level. So if you want to change the colors of your text or the background or add an image, you can do it at the row level. And it's a very good practice to use multiple rows, because if you accidentally delete one row, it's a lot easier to replicate that than if you have one row with a lot of different cards and you delete everything. So just something to keep in mind. Another good thing about the row card is that you can limit the visibility to specific groups. So if there's a page that's public facing, but you want people to be able to access content when they're signed in that only they can see, you can set a row with the visibility to just one specific group. And then only those people, once they're signed in, will be able to see that row. And also, I will demonstrate this later on so you can see. In terms of Hub content management, like I said, ArcGIS Hub is built on top of ArcGIS Online, so having some basic understanding of data management and groups is really helpful if you want to start building your sites. So all the content in ArcGIS Online is the content that you will display in your hub. The content catalogs are essentially displaying content inside of a group, which is the content group that gets created when you create a hub site. And the groups will respect the sharing levels. So if your hub site has a group that only has a few members of your organization inside of it, only those people will be able to see the content. So again, there are multiple ways of sharing your content, your ArcGIS Online content through Hub, using the search bar to access that open data interface that you saw before when I looked up in the Auckland Council open data. You can use the category cards, like I mentioned before as well, or the galleries, which give a more visual overview of the specific items you've chosen. So this has been mostly everything that's available in ArcGIS Hub Basic, which you have access to if you have an ArcGIS Online. But now I will start introducing ArcGIS Hub Premium, which brings in all those different collaboration and engagement tools. So the difference here goes from you sharing to your organization, from you and your organization informing the public, to maybe involving some members of the public or volunteers or people that work alongside you but are not part of your organization. And they can go from being anonymous users to users with an identity. And by identity, we simply mean an ArcGIS Online account, so they can start actively engaging with your projects and with you. So some of the engagement tools that are added with Premium include item-based discussions, where all the content that is displayed on your site can be commented on if you allow it to be, so that is a setting that you can set. You're able to create map-based idea boards, where users can drop a pin, draw a polygon or a line, and write down comments. And then other users can react to these posts or reply to existing threads. You can create projects, which makes standing up a page for a specific goal really easy. because they have a inbuilt timeline where you can outline the different stages of your projects and their different time frames, and you can attach items to your projects. And then you have events. So ArcGIS Hub Premium comes with an events management system, so you can organize events and display them on your site for people to click attend and follow for updates and more information. And there's a few other things that I will dive into more specifically, but how do you control who gets access to this and who gets to interact with you using these tools? So in ArcGIS Hub, members of the public or members outside of your organization or your team are able to create an account directly from your hub, and these are what we call community accounts. So you can create one using your email address or social logins like Facebook or GitHub or iCloud. And by creating an account, they can start using and leveraging all these tools. They can join teams, they can contribute content, they can start signing up to attend events, follow sites to follow updates, and also create content. And this is possible because when you get Hub Premium, a new organization is stood up, and this is your community organization. So this organization is specifically designed to manage these community accounts for people that you want to share content with, but you don't want to provide full access to your main employee organization. So you don't need to worry about external people being able to access the data and the space that you and your team work in, because they're held in a completely different space. But that being said, the hub site and the community organization are administered in your employee organization. So now, more specifically onto the ArcGIS Hub Premium tools. Like I mentioned before, you have hub projects, which represent short-term goals that you might be working on. And they're very easy to set up. So these are an item that exists only in ArcGIS Hub, and they're not stored in your ArcGIS Online. Like you can see in that graphic, you can set cards that are similar to dashboard indicators where you link specific item sources. For example, if you have a layer of the amount of volunteers you have, that can be dynamic and it can display in your project. You can have call to actions. You can feature specific content associated to this project and also have all the information on the outline or the timeline and keep a project status updated. So initiatives are similar to projects, but they represent more of a long-term goal scenario. So you can attach projects to initiatives. Again, out of the box, very easy to set up. And this is just as a visual. You can create a site, and then you can have multiple initiatives, maybe associated to that one site. And initiatives can also be associated to more than one site. And then projects can also be 2 projects associated to one initiative, or 1 project with one initiative. So here's one example where there's a site promoting a greener city, and then the initiative is to plant 1,000 new trees. And there's multiple projects where one of them is to plant 50 new trees in one specific neighborhood. Then there's events, which you can organize and track attendees. You can invite community members, you can get an email list, and you can have a way of contacting them very easily, all straight from Hub. Then group discussions. Like I mentioned before, you can have discussions on any sort of item displayed on your Hub site, whether that's a map or an application. But one of the newest features that have been added is discussion boards. So in discussion boards, first you set an area of interest where users can only drop a pin, a point or a polygon, or a line within that extent. These can be private or public, so held within a specific group of people. People can post, they can reply, they can react. You can also do ad mentions, so people get notified in their email when they get mentioned, and they can check what's been said. And it includes moderation tools. So you can approve or reject specific comments or lists. You can block words, and you can configure participation guidelines. So here's a video of what that looks like. So here the extent has been set just to that specific area, so you're not able to drop a point anywhere outside the specific area. You can see the different posts and the reactions. And you can even add pins to a reply. As you can see, you cannot put them outside of that chosen extent. Cool. So now I will jump into the demo part and create a Hub site from scratch. First, cool. So this is what you see when you, from ArcGIS Online, choose Hub, and you get an overview of your existing Hub sites and your content. So in my organization, I have ArcGIS Hub Premium, and you will see the difference here. So if you have Hub Basic, it will say Hub Basic, and you're still able to create sites, you just won't have this community tab. So like I said, you can browse templates, and there's a lot of different templates you can use. But I will create one without a template.
So in the background, of course, it's spinning up a few things. It's spinning up groups. It's spinning up applications. It's spinning up a membership list of people to add to these different groups. And so that's sort of what's happening behind the scenes as this page loads to us before we even get in there and start configuring the different elements.
But that took, 15 seconds, and I've already stood up a hub and thought I would just show what happened in the back end in ArcGIS Online. So 3 groups have been created. You have your hub content, which because my hub will be public, it's viewable by everyone, and any organization can be part of it. So you can, if you want, change these settings at the group level and then have it only be internal. Because I have Hub Premium, this Hub followers group is created as well. So when people follow the group, the Hub site, they will be added to this group. And then this is the admin group. So anyone who's a part of the core team of the Hub site, because of the shared update capability, they can edit the site. So I don't have to be the only one who manages it and edits it. So here, I didn't use a template, but it gives you this just to get started. I'll delete some of these rows. I will add a row, change the background. Maybe I'll add a map. Catchment groups. If I want to create multiple pages, I can also do that very easily here. Always remember to save what you're doing so you don't lose it. But as you save, it's not automatically going to update your published site.
So it almost acts as a pseudo UAT production, things you've saved versus things you've published.
Cool. So I've created a new page called data. I'll just take that URL. I can change it at any time as well. If I go back to the main page, I'll go to header, menu, and I can add that page through my content. This is where you find the Hub-specific items too. And I can link any sort of page I've already created. Or I can enter that link destination that way. And it will still recognize it and direct me to that page. So now I can start building multiple pages. What I want to show, maybe I'll add NZEUC. So now I have an event displayed there. But I want to add a row that's only visible to a few people. So add the gallery card. Now I'll select a group that I created a couple days ago. Cool. So I have a few items there. And here I'm in the gallery settings. If I go back to the row-specific settings, I will change the visibility to limit to a group. So only the people that are part of this group can see this content when they open the site. So just to demonstrate this quickly, first I'll share my site publicly. And I'll get it to access it.
Cool, so I've loaded up the URL, and this was the default. I'll just hit refresh. And now I have the hub visible on my side. I can see a basic site from my end, just in incognito. And back to Fran.
So I've added this group, and now if Ed signs in,
You can see that same site transforms with that access permission. So
now he's able to see that map, as well as that row with the content.
So it's quite cool having one item that sort of transforms a little bit like a transformer into different sections based on the identity alone, controlling what you see. So interesting workflows that can be built upon that. Back to you, Fran.
Just a couple other things to show, as in different ways of displaying your content. You can add a search bar, which takes you directly to that open data catalog interface. I accidentally placed it in the wrong row, so just create a new row. So as you can see, this is very easy to use, just drag and drop. No need to know any coding. So I've added a search bar to be able to access the content, but I want to also add some category cards. So again, always remember to use the rows. And I use category card. And within the group, you can select a group so that it takes you directly to the content sitting that group. And you can have multiple groups associated to a hub site. So not just that default content group that gets created. But you can also use category queries. So if I go back to my content group, I'll just add some content. And I'll set up categories. So I have 5 items, none of them are categorized, but I will categorize schools and supermarkets.
And we find this really useful because you might have your organisational set categories. When you're collaborating, you don't really want to have those maybe getting in the way of people just finding content really quickly and easily. So having this additional function on the groups, I think, is quite a neat we value add.
So then once I click on that, it will show me only those items that have been tagged with that structures category. So here we have our hub site.
Could I share something?
Go for it.
Awesome. So in response to the question I asked earlier about maybe I might not know coding to a level where I can be coding some of the elements on my page from scratch, but I want to look super awesome to my comms team who are approving my website before it goes publicly. And this is a little bit of an on-the-fly demonstration. I haven't planned this one, so let's see how we go. In this case, I'm showing you a resource on page which was developed during COVID-19, where a lot of hub sites were created inherently because it was a big thing that a lot of collaboration groups, a lot of collaborations were set up between portals, and a lot of hub sites were built to share content to respond to this crisis. And so this page here was a resource developed to put together some sample code snippets that users could pick up and put into their portals and their hub sites to save a little bit of time and also create components that looked really, really good alongside everything else that sits alongside Hub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy one of the snippets here and show you how you can quickly pick it up, drop it in a Hub site, change around the photo that's showing in that snippet, or referenced, and also the text, just to show you that it's really quick and easy to do. But I also want to mention that the Calcite components is a technology that evolved post-COVID, is really the fundamental building blocks of how these pages are now built. And so it's definitely something to look into if you are wanting to evolve your hub sites to look a little just more evolved than maybe the defaults that you have as part of it. And so let's go down to this specific custom card here, which I think looks quite nice. I'm just going to copy this snippet of code and just demonstrating the faith that I have in my abilities. I'm going to modify a live production hub site with this element just to make it a little bit more exciting for our Wednesday morning. So I'm going to first of all add in a row. And then the next thing I'm going to do is add in a text element. I'm shaking. Here we go. I'm going to paste in that snippet. So just copy. And one thing I did really quickly there, but which I'll just highlight, is the fact that you do have HTML capabilities with these elements. So I'm just going to edit HTML, paste in that snippet of code, and hit apply. When I then go out of editing mode, you can see it loaded at its full extent, what it looks like. But my external comms team aren't too happy with a photo of rural Louisiana for a New Zealand specific hub page. So I'm going to take an image, and you can take any image that you have online. I'm going to have one of Wellington. And I'm just going to go back into that HTML editing mode and just swap that image around. A lot of the coding, or a lot of the code snippets are really easy to navigate once you get a hang of the different pieces of the puzzle here. And I'm just going to change this as well to this audience is great. And so there I've got something that looks like I've got coding abilities which I know for sure are well beyond my own personal ones, but just showing how a lot of the code snippets that you have available in the developer resources of Esri, as well as some of these hub site resources or specific pages like this one here, are really, really useful. So if you type in ArcGIS hub site page customization tricks, you've got a few things up your sleeve to show off how awesome you are on top of all the great work you already do. And just a final nod, if you didn't pick up on it, the New Zealand Esri User Conference site was entirely built on Hub. So it's definitely something that can evolve a little bit more than just showcasing geospatial content. In this case, we had hub sites, a wider initiative, and some of our individual pages in here, like the Emergency Management Summit, were contributed from different teams, not within the same hub site. So different teams were creating pages, and we were embedding them inside it. So it's a really neat, flexible technology in that sense. So I'll hand back to Fran to round us off.
Cool. So to wrap it all up, just as a summary, with Hub Basic, you can create sites and open data portals. And with Hub Premium, you can start involving external people so they can follow your sites, they can attend events, they can see projects, be part of teams, have discussions, and more. And lastly, just to mention it, enterprise sites, which has the same functionality as Hub Basic, but in an enterprise environment. And just some resources for you. The Esri community, as always, really good space to ask questions and see what's already been asked, what works for people. The What's New documentation is not the best place to see what's new in Hub because new releases occur almost every week. So the changelog is the place to see. And as you can see, there was things changed yesterday in that screenshot. And tutorials, just to get started, just to get a feel of how to create a site and what are the best practices. So here are those links.
And I guess to just sum up all the content that we've covered, because we've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from groups and individual item sharing, talking about both online and enterprises, collaboration abilities, and the different settings that you can enable within there. And we've got some excellent questions in the Q&A that we'll walk through some of the, I guess, approaches and workflows around some of those. But then we've got into the specific tools and applications inside ArcGIS that really foster and take collaboration further than just sharing content into a group with other members with a few safeguards. Things like Hub Basic, which I don't think is basic for the capabilities it enables, sharing data in a really nice web page that everyone has access to, and then taking that next level beyond with Hub Premium with not just additional features and functions, but also a child ArcGIS Online subscription that sits beneath that parent ArcGIS Online environment that it's been applied to. So you get this separate ArcGIS Online for all your community members to log in and create an account against, which means it's separated from your home environment, and all the really, really neat things you can do with those websites that Fran walked through. So thank you so much for your time and energy in this session with Slido. We're going to pop back to it in a second, but I think it's about time to go to a Q&A, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. There's the Slido on screen again.
All right, thanks, guys. That was really great. You guys covered a lot of ground in that amount of time. We do have some really good questions that have come in this time, so I think we're just going to kick off and go back and forth and answer some of these.
Yep.
So at the top, I think this is mine. We've got a question of how do you manage sync replicas in the server logs, and can you ignore them, or do you need to take action? It's a loaded question because I think it very much depends on what kind of things you're seeing in the logs. The fine level details in the logs will just tell you that it's happened. But if you're talking about warnings and errors or severe warnings saying it's not working, then yeah, you probably do need to take action to find out why the replicas are not happening. If you want to come find me or somebody on the Eagle stand afterwards, I can show you where to get in deep in the bowels of the server admin. There's a place where you can get a little bit more information about why that would have failed. All right. Ooh, things have changed. We have one here about collaborations not necessarily working in 10.9.1. And I know there have been some challenges in setting this up in some environments. It's very environment specific. It does depend on some of your issues with your network, firewalls, things like that. We do try our best to work with the IT team to resolve these. And of course, the processes and the ability to troubleshoot them does get better at every version. So we have been seeing quite a good amount of success setting this up at 11.1 onwards. So if you are having issues, again, please come see us. We'll try to work this out for you. And I manage the team of advisors, so you can come tell on that advisor that didn't get it to work. No, don't. Okay. Will the ability to have a distributed collaboration with more than one other organization eventually be introduced? That's definitely a you guys question.
Yeah, so we have a very special guest from Esri called Philip Heedy, who I think could probably be the best source to answer that question. At this point, in the short term, there aren't any plans to introduce that. But do come along to the road here just in case we get an answer from Philip and add it in.
Cool. All right, can you elaborate on the reference versus copy for distributed groups? What considerations should be factored, pros versus cons of each, and use cases? Oh boy, I could be up here for half an hour with that one. I think the main thing to remember is when you're sharing these items, a reference is really only going to share the item that is still living in your own organization. So you maintain control of that item. If you use a copy one, it is literally making a copy in the second environment. You no longer own the copy that's on the other end of that collaboration. To be honest, we almost always see the copy just because the end user then will have full functionality. So for example, say that I have a feature layer in my end that I've shared as a reference, but I do have some sharing permissions set up on that feature layer. If somebody on the other end goes to access it, they're actually going to get a pop-up saying, please log into organization A, and kind of defeats the purpose of trying to share it. There may be reasons why you do want to do this, but more often than not, you would see the copy across. But it is really important to know when you do that and set it up to copy, the other end is getting that copy, and they can do whatever they want with it technically. So they could share it on, or they could download a copy. So yeah, just those organizational questions you might want to ask about which one's the best for you.
We did have a question that came in, which, Fran, if you want to take this one, it's marked as answered in here, but around moderations, is there the ability to moderate comments that come through inside an ArcGIS Hub Premium? Just one that came through, but we've marked it as answered. You covered that earlier on around being able to moderate conversations that you've got in discussions.
Yeah, so for discussions where you set a discussion board, you can specify channels, and channels host groups. So then you can add one or multiple groups. So then those discussions are held just with the people inside of those groups. And then again, you can select specific words that once they're commented, you are able to see the comment, but you have to approve if you want to show it, or you can decline, and it will not be part of it. But it will be automatically blocked if it's part of those words that you selected.
So yeah, none of those really mean comments can make their way through to the public if it's set up that way. We have another one around in a two-way sync via distributed collaboration, or is a two-way sync via distributed collaboration possible without data store? It's between ArcGIS Online and Enterprise, i.e. data can flow back to an Enterprise geodatabase. So yeah, yes, short answer, but there are some considerations to put into account. The data in the Enterprise geodatabase has to be branch editing or non-versioned with archiving enabled. So those are your things you have to switch on there.
Answer the first one.
Cool, and one at the top here, can we get externals to share their restricted data to our hub group so we can include it in our hub site?
Yes. So any group.
Can I take that one?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Short answer, no.
Oh.
Your ArcGIS Hub group is your organization administrator and your core team. But if you've got somebody from externally, you can do a collaboration potentially from your group, and then once you own that content in your own group, you can then go on and share that with your hub content group. It's just one of those things, again, just if it's restricted on this side and you're sharing it over on this side, make sure you've asked that side if that's okay.
But if you include that group in a hub site and people who are part of that group access the hub site, they can see the content.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So
I think
that's
that's it.
all the questions that have come through. For now, we are going to be out the front, so come up and have a chat to us. But yeah, we'll hand back to you, Beth Ann, to close off.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Are there any other questions coming in from the floor? No? Cool. There were some great questions there. Okay, well, thank you to Fran and Ed for that session.